Welcome to the Kaizorian experience. Over here, we're going to be talking about everything African. We're going to be having debates, discussions, entertainment, as well as learning about business, art, history, and everything in between. Cultural, tribalism, and everything. We're going to be out here debating with some really interesting stuff. So, like the video, share the video, and make sure you subscribe. Make sure you subscribe. Subscribe for the best experience ever. This is the biggest channel on the Afrosphere. So come and join the team, become a Kaizorian, and join the Kaizorian Empire. Universally exist within myself, within this premise, and I exist within this bluebird in the sky. I'ma fly like the blue in the sky. I'ma fly like bird in the sky. I'ma fly like bluebird in the sky. I'ma fly like bluebird in the sky. I'ma fly like bluebird in the sky. I'ma throw my bluebird in the sky. I'ma soar like bluebird in the sky. I'ma soar like bluebird in the sky. I'ma fly like bluebird in the sky. I'ma fight like bluebird in the sky. I'ma eat like bluebird in the sky. I'ma be like bluebird in the sky. I'ma be bluebird in the sky. I'ma be free, bluebird in the sky. I'ma be free like bluebird in the sky. I'ma be like bluebird in the sky. Back again like the second coming. Strumming my vocal cords like the hummingbird in the sky. Y'all can't deny this. Real rap lyrics, it's like I ain't got no rhyming through the sky limit. What is skin tone, shade of color, but a parallel form of frequency like a ringtone on your phone. Melanin expression tied up in the universe, feeling like God. Is it really us? Is it serious? Is it really wrong to be diverse? I'm a divergent, immerse myself like an ocean beneath this waves. Be a divergent, born to be different. Indigo child, wild like canary. Born to be a bluebird in the sky, flying high like a bluebird in the sky. I'm a fly high bluebird in the sky. Yeah, bluebird in the sky. I'm a fly high bluebird in the sky. I'ma be like bluebird in the sky. I'ma be like bluebird in the sky. Everybody scream bluebird in the sky. I'ma fly high bluebird in the sky. I'ma be like bluebird in the sky. Yeah, bluebird in the sky. Everybody, bluebird in the sky. I'ma be like bluebird in the sky. I'ma be like bone black, sweet like a berry. Flying high like a canary. Scary with my hoodie on. Hating on my vibe on the street that you'll be feeling my frequency of the song. But I know that I ain't never ever gonna be ever the same. But I know. Shalom, shalom, mother loving one. What's good? What's good? Well, we're gonna be out here analyzing the situation in Niger. And we'll start off by a channel over here called Africa Diaspora News channel, right? Of course, we're going to come for them immediately, right? You can find their channel here, Fair Use. We're going to analyze their news product as well as other videos. But anyways, fair use. Let's go ahead and let's get it. Already, we can see that the title is wrong, right? The title here says Niger Junta orders French, German, and American ambassadors out of the country. That is not true. They did not order the American ambassadors out of the country. And to be honest, this tends to be the issue with alternative media platforms. People add their own interpretation into the news that's breaking as opposed to actually saying the reality, right? So there's a lack of due diligence as well as, actual journalistic reporting. So there is a point to actually having some kind of journalistic background, at least as a technical field of, hey, do some research. No, Niger Junta has not ordered American ambassadors out. Quite the opposite. The French ones, maybe, right? So anyways, yeah, that's the issue with some of these platforms. Let's go ahead.
In West Africa and even the African continent. Niger is up. They've given no. The Niger is saying time is up. They've given notice to the French ambassador.
Yeah, sorry, I think I was acting a little bit slow. Give me a second. Let's see if we can fix this problem.
The Niger Junta is saying time is up. They've given notice to the French ambassador, the German ambassador, and the US ambassador to leave their countries with immediate
This is not true. They've not given notice to the American ambassadors.
effect, as they don't want anything to do with them anymore. If you're part of the oppression and you're a perpetrator and you've been supporting the oppressor that was in power, we don't want anything to do with you. And we don't want you to be a part of the new Niger that we're trying to build. Hello there, how are you doing? Welcome to another episode of our conversation.
Yeah, so let me just counteract that piece of information that the sister tried to push. America is not being asked to leave, right? The Nigerians do not want America to leave. Actually, America and the Nigerian junta have striked a deal for them to resume military operations, aka training the soldiers of Niger, as well as other things that they're there for. So that is not true, right? This is where Pan-Africans obviously link their own emotional reasons and push it onto other people, right? The reality is, let me see if I can find the video so that we can analyze it. But no, they've not asked the Americans to leave by any means at all. They want Americans there. In fact, America has been very strategic not to call it a junta, or rather a military coup, because otherwise, in their own policies, they wouldn't be able to interact with them. So this is very strategic from the America side. Okay, so the video is refusing to play. So give me a second. Okay, yeah. So yeah, sorry guys, just experiencing some technical difficulties for a moment. So bear with me a little bit, just trying to resolve it. Um, hopefully it's gonna work now. Okay, cool.
My name is Adira Ganga. I'm a business journalist by profession and a digital content creator. I love coming on here talking to you about Black people, our empowerment, how we can rise up and take our rightful place at the global stage. Now, you can follow me on social media at Ondiro Ganga, on YouTube at Ondiro Ganga, where Africa in the most authentic and original ways. Now, let's get into it. Military coups are nothing new in West Africa and even the African continent. There have been several coups across the continent, and one message is very consistent with all these coups. We want France out, particularly the ECOWAS region, Niger, Burkina Faso, Mali, Gabon. All of them don't want.
Yeah, so Gabon is not really in West Africa, right? Gabon is in Central Africa, etc. So I just want to make sure that we have that correction there for factual reasons. Yes, but in general, anti-French sentiments has been riling up in West Africa. That is correct. The Central African situation is nothing to do with France. It's to do with corruption and the Bongo family. Very different. There is no anti-French sentiment there, as it's key to want France out. Right. That's more of we just want a regime change because this has been in control for too long.
To do with France. And this is nothing new. I've covered this for a long time on the channel. France is the oppressor that never left the continent. When all the other colonialists packed and left, and they do neocolonialism in a very subtle way, France doesn't do any of that. It will take your money, it will control your military, it will control your resources. France literally has its boots on the necks of this West African country. And so in July, there was a coup in Niger that ousted the President Mohamed Bazoum from office, and the presidential elite guard took office. And during the protest in support of the military, the civilians were seen celebrating and saying they want France out of their country. It wasn't the military that said, it was the civilians that were saying they want France out of the country. They even went to the French embassy and were rioting out of there. And, France came out very clearly to say that if you interfere with our interests and our people in Niger, then we're going to, militarily intervene. France was backing ECOWAS to militarily intervene in Niger. France requested Algeria to carry out their military operations through the airspace of Algeria, and Algeria said no. Now France has not come out to refute it, and that's how it actually is true. And all these things combined, not
No, that's not how you know anything is true, right? You can give indications, but yeah. So anyway, shout out to the sister, right? She's creating a narrative that this is all anti-French, and I believe there is a lot of anti-French sentiments going on, right? But this whole thing is not just anti-French. A lot of it is based on other elements that's going on in West Africa, which is to do with regime change. Now, some of the civilians might want France out. Majority of them may even want France out. But the military wanted to take control because of, guess what? They're the ones who are fighting the Islamic terrorist groups. And one thing I've noticed with all these Pan-African spaces, actually all the spaces, no one is talking about Islamic terrorism in the West African region, in that Sahel, Burkina Faso triangle over there with Chad, Burkina Faso, Niger, etc. Nobody, zero of them will mention the real reason why France claims to be there. Right? And that is actually very significant. The military did not do it because they hated France. The military took control because they were being under-equipped by the civilian government to go and carry out their jobs, right? A lot of their soldiers were dying. They didn't have enough manpower, not enough firepower. So if you put all those things together, if the military feels like it's losing its people, that's one of the reasons why they took control, because they at least now have access to the treasury. If they have access to the treasury, they could probably, in theory at least, give its civilians the adequate amount of protection.
notwithstanding the fact that France has a military presence in Niger. Why? I don't know. France.
You hear that? Why? I don't know. Sister, this is embarrassing, right? This is embarrassing, and this makes us look bad. You don't know why France is there. It's very simple, right? They signed military contracts with Nigerian president. Bazoum was one of them over there, in order for them to provide military support, to station over 1,500 soldiers to help keep the peace in that country. So if you're saying you don't know why they're there, that is embarrassing. That's literally what I said even before, and about a lot of these Pan-African spaces. Like, just listen to us say that again. I don't know. That's ignorance, and ignorance is not a good thing to feel good about.
Notwithstanding the fact that France has a military presence in Niger. Why? I don't know. France is the biggest beneficiary of Niger's uranium, yet the people of Niger continue to languish in poverty.
Yes, and I talked about this. It's because France owns the mines. It's all to do with mining and operations of mines and ownership of mines, right? If the Nigerian government owned the mines, guess what? They would benefit more from those mines. So you got it's simple as this. Niger has uranium. Niger does not have engineers, does not have the technology, aka machines, right? Because they didn't industrialize to go and excavate those mines and take the uranium. They don't have the technology to survey the areas with adequate resources, aka uranium deposits. So the French company Orano came in, set up two mines, right? Sommer and I forgot the name of the other mine, right? Set up those two mines, and now those two mines are 70% owned, well, 60% owned by the French company, and then 10% owned by a Spanish company, and the government owns around 30% of the mines. So when you look at it, this is not about, oh, Niger does not have electricity, yet France does. It's got nothing to do with that. This is basic trade. Unfortunately, until we, I don't want to say mindset, but if we don't comprehend the reality over here, which is Niger played a bad game, Niger did not industrialize, Niger did not invest itself on ways to actually make sure it's strong enough to basically do, add value to its resources. That's the reality.
So why are we selling to you our uranium if we're not benefiting from it? And the military out. We don't want our country.
Correction, it's not our uranium. First of all, I don't know if you're Nigerian, so I don't know. But if you're not Nigerian, it's not our uranium. Secondly, it's not even Nigerian. What you call it? Uranium. It is French uranium, right? The mines are legally owned by France as a majority shareholder in those mines.
Including your ambassador. We want ambassador out, and they want the German ambassador out. Now, this is we don't want you in our country, including your ambassador. We want your ambassador out. They want the French ambassador out. They want the American ambassador out, and they want
no. And this is why, as I like to, curl fake news before it starts to rise too much. Niger has no issue with the Americans, right? The companies and the trade deals are not with Americans. It's to do with the French companies like Orano. The Americans are immune. In fact, America has not declared this military coup as an actual military coup. So therefore, they can still, according to their own policies and foreign affairs laws, with the Nigerian government, or the current Nigerian government. America hasn't declared this a coup, right? So, sister, this is a lot of misinformation. And this is why sometimes, although I like alternative media, you do always have to be extremely careful about this whole situation, right? Because people will lie and, just use their emotions and think this is some anti-Western African Spring movement. No, it's not, right? This is very specific about a very specific area with very specific problems, aka Islamic terrorism, that is rampant in that whole region. Lack of security. It's also to do with bad deals signed whereby France owns majority of these mines that produce a lot of the foreign exchange that they get. That's the problem there. Nothing to do with America, right? America is not an issue. In fact, more Americans are trooping into Nigeria. Of course, exactly, right? They're signing deals with America now to allow them to continue operations as usual, right? So this is the issue again. Like I said, guys, be careful when you do watch Pan-African media platforms. Again, Pan-African. They didn't say African. Said this Pan-African is very specific groups of people that believe they project their own emotions onto every problem.
The German ambassador out. Now, this is not in any way to support military rules because they're very autocratic, they're forceful, and most of the time they do not lean towards democracy. But that's from an outside perspective looking in. If the people of Niger are supporting the coup, who are we from the outside to say no? All we can wish them is wish them well. And when they are ready for a democratic government, then we can lend our voices to that cause. But what is very interesting is the self-entitlement of France. The president of France, Emmanuel Macron, came out to say the ambassador of France will not go anywhere, and France does not take orders from illegal governments. Instead, they still recognize the legitimacy of former President Mohamed Bazoum. That should tell you a lot. That should tell you that France is an ally, not to Niger and the people of Niger.
I don't really understand what the sister's point is. I thought already established that France is the enemy, or that France has deals with the previous president, right? No, that does not mean that, sister. Even your analysis is wrong, right? France, just like America, has what they believe, right? With their foreign affairs policies, right? Policies that allow them to interact with countries. And the reality here is, right, France has the deal saying they should not be doing deals with countries that have coups because they don't recognize those coup leaders as the appropriate leaders. Now, of course, that is a protection in this case. France also like Bazoum, obviously, right? Two things can be true. But, sister, your reasoning isn't really at the most accurate, right?
Bazoum. Why? Because the person in power was an
Did you want to say something on that?
No, you made the point that I just came in to make, that France are right not to recognize the junta
Exactly.
because it is an illegitimate government. So there's no wrongdoing there. Nobody elected them into government. So if they're saying they don't recognize them, then that's perfectly within rights.
Yep, exactly. So yeah, I don't know. One man, I just think there is a problem in these Pan-African spaces, and the problem is quite clear. The problem is actually that they don't do journalism the correct way. So what will end up happening is they might end up shutting these multimedia networks down on the basis of misinformation, bad journalism, because they don't even care about the facts or the truth. You're supposed to report the facts as you know it, with relevant sources if you have it, then add to your interpretation. But she's out here saying it as a fact that they want the German and the American ambassadors out of the country when they've just, renegotiated deals with America to resume training and any military operations there. So yeah, this is kind of insane. They add on to the interpretation.
You have to understand that with some of these spaces, it's a case of just putting out a YouTube video on a hot topic.
Okay.
She's probably just glanced at some sort of maybe read one article or two just to have something to say, and then she's coming with the moral indignation, wave the black flag, and kumbaya. So that's just it, isn't it?
Oh, when you say black flag, you literally mean the black flag, lol.
Yeah, no, the Pan-Africanism you were referencing, that's usually a rallying call.
Yeah. Right. Now that does make sense.
French neo-colonialism and oppression of Africa and the people of Niger. He was perpetuating the continuity of that abusive financial, diplomatic, and political relationship that Niger had with.
Yeah, I'm even confused at this point again. Why is she saying this? Like, I thought we already established that France as an entity does this on purpose to maintain power, control, and economic supremacy. So why is she highlighting it again? That this proves... I'm really confused here. Like, I thought that was the first statement to begin with.
France. And now that new leadership has come in office and is trying to cut that cord, France is saying, we're not going to recognize you. We wait to see who will change their stance first. But from the look of things, France is saying that they're not going to leave Niger, a country that is not theirs, but the military junta insists that you will leave. Let me know what you think about the military ordering the ambassadors.
Yeah, the junta has only, as far as I know, right, has only told the French ambassador to leave. There's no news talking about telling an American one to leave, especially when they've renegotiated certain deals and terms. And I'll show you a little bit of a video, etc., explaining what I'm saying right now. Just give me a second. But yeah, what's being talked about is not actually true. It's fake news, actually. Let me see. Yep, it's called U.S. troops resume operations. Right? That's the reality. U.S. troops have not been kicked out. Give me a second, just sharing my screen. Yep, let's go.
Now let's turn our attention to West Africa. It's been an eventful week in Niger. The country was hit by a coup in the month of July, and now the junta is in charge. They seem to be employing two tactics against the West, almost like a carrot and stick approach. The carrot is reserved for the US and the American military operations in the country. The stick is for France. Now, before the coup, Niger was working with a host of Western nations like France, Germany, Italy, and the US. All of them had a military presence in Niger. The US has more than 1,000 soldiers in the country. They worked with other foreign troops and Niger's military. They fought terrorists in Africa's Sahel region. But on the 26th of July, all of this stopped. that's when the coup was announced. President Mohamed Bazoum was removed from power. He was imprisoned by Niger's new military leaders. So what did these foreign troops do? The foreign troops deployed in Niger.
Yeah, actually, shout out. So it does look like some media stations do report the actual truth about this whole situation, right? Why wasn't there American soldiers to begin with? It's not like they just happened to be there because someone was signing bad deals. No, there really was a legitimate reason for the Americans, the French, and other Western nations to host their troops there because it was part of a concerted effort against so-called Islamic terrorism in the Sahel. So they needed certain places, strategic places, Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, as outposts so that they can easily react and respond to the terrorism. Now, we also know that these troops will protect, first and foremost, the economic interests of these nations, aka the French troops were probably, a lot of them, protecting the mines, making sure that the mines didn't have bad operations, making sure that, if the mines had to, if the uranium was being transported from the mines to another area for export, that they had adequate protection. So we know, obviously, right, the French were protecting their interests, right? But we can't pretend that France was just there somehow. No, they were invited.
They do when the coup happened. Most stayed put in their bases. But that is changing now. Reports say American soldiers are back in action. They've resumed their activities in Niger. The US has apparently reached some sort of an understanding with the junta. So US troops are back to conducting drone and crewed missions. Last week, the Pentagon had put out this statement.
There's no perceived threat in terms of any threat to U.S. troops and no threat of violence on the ground. This is simply a precautionary measure.
Yep, see, there's no threats on U.S. troops. There's nothing going wrong against U.S. troops, right? Niger doesn't want to be free from the West. It wants to be free from France, true, and protect its investments, right? It probably wants to reclaim the next set of uranium that's going to be exported.
So what we're doing right now is the department is repositioning some of our personnel and some of our assets from Airbase 101 in Niamey to Airbase 201 in Agadez.
There was no perceived threat. The US troops just left Niger's capital, Niamey. They relocated to what's known as Airbase 201. This is in the center of Niger. And now the American...
And guess what's in that area in the Airbase 2101, right? Yeah, let's go find out, right? I think you won't be surprised. It's uranium deposits. Right, that is where there's uranium deposits, right? So let me go prove it. Yep, let me just pull it up in a second. Okay, uranium. Okay. Merced Basin uranium deposit, right? Yep. Give me a second, just pulling out the area. Yep, here it is. Okay, so according to this source, it's a research paper. Here you can go find it. It's Scientific Direct. It's a website. I'm just posting in the chat for anyone who wants to counter check the facts that I'm talking about, right? So what's actually happening here is it looks like the Nigerian government is working, or at least going to try to work with the Americans, because as we see here, the Americans have left base operations from the capital to the air, right? Air, right? That's the area. They've gone over there. Now, if you look at this article here, the main uranium deposits in Niger, right? Erlit, over there, right? Akuta and Imoran are located in the Tim Mersoy Basin west of Air Mountains. So there was no cap, right? These guys are going there probably to protect the mines. So there might be a new deal between the French, sorry, not the French, the Nigerian government as well as the American military in order to protect its investments over there in the Air Mountains, right? So perhaps they're going to try some weird stuff to take over the deposits, right? This is interesting development.
It's known as Air Base 201. This is in the center of Niger. And now the Americans are conducting intelligence and surveillance missions from here. They're back to tracking terrorists. But France has a different story to tell. France is in the line of fire of Niger's junta, and they're adamant. They say the French must leave their country. French troops must go. In fact, this has been the call since the coup took place in July. Niger has seen numerous demonstrations against France. French flags have been burnt. The French ambassador in Niger has been asked to leave. He hasn't yet. There are 1,500 French soldiers in the country. They're stationed in a military base near the capital, Niamey, and there have been regular protests outside this French military base with calls for the soldiers to leave. Despite all of this, France has stuck around. Last week, Niger's junta said they were given some assurances. They were apparently told that the French troops would be redeployed and there would be some withdrawal. But the junta voiced concerns on Sunday.
It should be pointed out to national and international public opinion that since the announcement of this withdrawal plan, France has continued to deploy its forces in several ECOWAS countries as part of the preparations for an aggression against Niger that it is planning in collaboration with this community organization. The CNSP and the transitional government denounce and castigate this lack of sincerity. These underhand, delaying tactics are designed to dull the patriotic ardor of the Niger people in their fight for the total withdrawal of French troops from Niger.
Niger's junta called France's tactics insincere and underhanded. When asked about the junta statement, this is what French President Emmanuel Macron said.
A coup since last July has been holding hostage a democratically elected president. France has a simple position. We are condemning it. We are demanding the release of President Bazoum and the rehabilitation of the constitutional order. We do not recognize any legitimacy in the statements of putschists. President Bazoum has not renounced to his power, and so if we ever redeploy, I would do so only at the request of President Bazoum and in coordination with him, not with those responsible today for holding a president hostage.
While all this was happening, more trouble was brewing in Niamey. Niger's junta arrested a French official last Friday. He was a counselor for French citizens abroad, elected by the French citizens in Niger to represent their interests. The French Ministry of Foreign Affairs issued an alert on Tuesday. They demanded his release. The next day, the official was set free. This arrest had the potential to cause an escalation, but it seems Niger's junta did not want that. The arrest may have just been a warning, a reminder to France that things could get worse. So how will Paris react to this? Will Macron finally agree to leave, or will the move strengthen his resolve to stay? We'll find out in the days to come.